Hi all, I'm Jason Johnson, the Managing Partner of executive search firm Johnson Partners, which is one of the co-conveners of the awards and the broader Asian Australian Summit. I'm honoured to be chairing the 2021 40 Under 40 Most Influential Asian Australian Awards today. On behalf of my fellow co-conveners, namely Asialink at the University of Melbourne, PwC Australia, and the Centre for Asian Australian Leadership at the Australian National University, I wish you all a very warm welcome, including an especially warm welcome for the almost 200 applicants for this year's awards. Given the geographically dispersed attendees today, I acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Now in its third year, these awards seek to confront Australia's bamboo ceiling, the underrepresentation of Asian Australians in leadership positions. As communities, companies and governments rethink and reshape leadership for the post-pandemic world, now is the time to celebrate the powerful contribution of Asian Australians to this country. Today's ceremony will include acceptance speeches from each of the 10 category winners, including a speech from the overall winner, who will be called out as the last winner today. Every person, however, mentioned in this session has been awarded inclusion in the 40 Under 40 this year. And this year we have a new category, the inaugural Under 25 Rising Star Award, in response to an abundance of submissions from high achievers under the age of 25. We will conclude the event with a live closing statement from this year's overall winner. And I still remember last year's overall winner, Lima Nguyen, and her speech, which was incredibly moving. You'll also all see a comment box on the side of your screens. Feel free to share congratulatory notes with winners as the awards progress. And also please note that the webinar will be recorded for historical purposes, and a copy of the event will be available on the Asian Australian Leadership Summit website. Now to the awards. The awards are designed to celebrate the achievements of the next generation of Asian Australians, making them more visible in the wider community, and to provide a stepping stone to further leadership opportunities. It's about celebrating young leaders driving impact in their communities and making a contribution to a truly diverse Asia-engaged Australia. The awardees have been decided by a panel of esteemed judges and coordinated by my firm, Johnson Partners, a leading executive search firm. I'd like to take a moment now to recognise and honour my fellow judges and thank them for their contribution. Dr. Pippa Dixon, Director of Asialink Arts at Asialink at the University of Melbourne. Craig Foster AM, former captain of the Socceroos, journalist and humanitarian advocate. Steve Hui, founder and chief executive of I Fly Flat. Confia Carbo, founding partner of Carbo Lawyers and CEO of Axara Group. Jae Yung Lo, Director of the Centre for Asian Australian Leadership at the Australian National University. David McKeering, Australian Consulting Leader and ASEAN Consulting CEO at PwC Australia. Lima Nguyen, barrister and last year's overall winner of the awards. Katrina Rathie, a prominent chair and non-executive director. Libby Roy, Managing Director of the Small and Medium Business Segment at Optus. Sharmila Soudalakis, Chief Innovation, Marketing and Technology Officer at Stockland. And finally, Jason Yeep, OAM, Chairman of Mering Corporation, investor and philanthropist. In addition, the awards have been supported by numerous people. However, a few in particular deserve mention. Penny Burt and Heather Chai from Asialink, Tuan Nguyen, Thung Lee from PwC, and from my team at Johnson Partners, Alex Jervis, Georgia Bell, and Elise Johnson. Thank you for the tremendous support. We couldn't have done put these awards on without you. So let's now turn to the criteria that the judges have relied on to determine the winners. It was an incredibly challenging task to distill a list of 40 from almost 200 applicants. In doing so, we relied on the following criteria. Applicants must be a standout in their respective field. They must be preeminent in their chosen industry, ideally both locally and on the global stage. They must demonstrate a contribution to Australia-Asia relations, that is, building closer ties between communities. There must be evidence that they're helping break through the bamboo ceiling and be notable for pioneering Asian Australian leadership and influence within their respective field. And importantly, they must inspire others. They must have demonstrated impact in mentoring or in community development. So without further ado, let's turn to the first category. And that is arts and culture, where we have 6 tremendous people joining the 40 under 40. And they are Diana Nguyen, actor, comedian and writer. Juliette Widiasari Burnett, a dancer, choreographer, director, writer and activist who works in APART and also the Opera Ballet Vlaanderen in Europe. Maria Tran, managing director and creative artist at Phoenix Eye. Mindy Maing Wang, a composer, producer and performing artist. Astrid Jorgensen, director of pub choir. And Robert Denish Wood, the creative director for the Centre for Stories. And the category winner for the 2021 Arts and Culture category is Juliette Widiasari Burnett. Congratulations, Juliette. Juliette is a dancer, choreographer, director, writer and activist. A proud Indonesian Australian, Juliette is a member of Belgium's Opera Ballet Vlaanderen. She's currently preparing to launch APART, an online studio and stage for Australian and Indonesian artists to collaborate through commissioned projects and live online performance in response to the pandemic and the long-term issue of accessibility to the arts. Great to have you, Juliette. We'll now hear from you.
Thank you very much. It's 3 a.m. here in Belgium, so apologies if I have a slightly croaky voice, but thank you so much for having me, and it really means a lot. So thank you very much, everyone, for the warmth and support. I really appreciate it. This award means a lot to me personally, of course, as a recognition of my work, but perhaps even more importantly is what it means to other Asian Australian women. You spend a lot of time as a kid, as a teenager, trying to fit in or be like everybody else. And then as a person of liminal cultures, you're constantly navigating this neither here nor there feeling, a sort of split existence, which you only really become aware of as you grow older and meet new people and you realize, okay, I'm different to everybody else. It's that point of difference that we liminal beings have a mixed relationship with. In childhood, when all you want to do is fit in, it's fraught. But then in adulthood, when you're in the workforce and you're fighting to be noticed, to stand out so you can be recognised or promoted or get more opportunities, that difference can be welcome and maybe even celebrated. I'm very aware that I'm a white passing individual, so I've not experienced overt racism, but a couple of underhanded comments here and there from people who should definitely know better. The prejudices that I've experienced, though, have come from being a woman, especially a strong woman, in an industry that employs a majority of females, and yet females are in a bewildering minority in leadership positions. And as an Indonesian, Australian and female artist, I feel an immense responsibility to represent others like me. If someone who knows me well were to be asked what defines me, they might say something like, Juliette can't accept when things are unfair or unjust. And that sums things up pretty well, from the micro to the macro level. I believe in fairness, and I don't believe in doing things how they've always been done just because that's the way they've always been done. If there's unfair practice in the workplace, I'll question it over and over again, which is tough in a dance industry that's so embedded in traditional ideals and archaic working models. Things have progressed at a relatively glacial rate compared with the rest of the modern world, and though it's better, it's largely far from acceptable. Diversity of cultural and gender representation on stage and off stage remains largely whitewash, homogenous and binary. There are exceptions, of course, but usually only in the independent sector. The large federal funded companies in Australia, in heritage art forms in particular, lack diversity. And this stems from a lack of accessibility to training, which is expensive, metropolitan, and cuts out anyone below the line. The elitism begins at the foundations. So this is a big part of my work, and how to make this art form of dance the universal language that defies borders of language, religion, and even culture, true to its universality, and make training and the prospect of a career possible for more people. In many ways, despite being born and bred in Sydney, I'm more strongly connected to my Indonesian culture. My mum, Widias, cooks us the most beautiful Indonesian food, and the house was always awash with batik and Indonesian furniture. In one of our annual visits to Indonesia, I remember we were driving from the airport, Cengkareng Airport, to my aunt's place, and I noticed the dishevelled tin roofs that were squashed in between the fly road from Cengkareng Airport to right out to the Ciliwung River. I asked Mum and Dad what they were, and they told my sister Jasmine and I exactly what they were without sugarcoating it for kids. We arrived at my aunt's house with clean white tiles, air conditioning and a TV, and I just couldn't understand it and couldn't stop thinking about the poor people who seemed to have nothing, living under the freeway by the polluted river. It didn't seem fair, and there were just so many of them. So when I was considering ways to make dance accessible as an adult, I thought of these people first, this memory from my childhood. After I left the Australian Ballet in 2015, I was invited by a local organisation in Indonesia called Ballet ID, who do wonderful work, to perform in Jakarta for the first time. So of course I said yes, but on a condition. I asked them if alongside this they would help me facilitate a community workshop alongside a dance workshop for local ballet students. And they agreed to this. So the rest is history, which I intend on continuing to make and grow. As an artist too, we're perennially searching for that which sets us apart. For me, my Javanese culture is not a token, but a definition of myself. It's really hard in today's product and results rat race to seek out and protect your integrity and to reclaim value in process and attention to detail and compassion for others. But these factors combined are mine to hold close, and no matter what size my audience is, I'll continue to do so that I can affect change where necessary and help an art form that I believe has so much power to continue to grow and to be relevant. My uncle, W.S. Rendra, famously said, "The role of an artist is to be a voice for the people." And just as he took me under his wing as a starry-eyed youngster, I take those wise words to heart with me always. I have to say thank you so much to you guys, Johnson Partners, Asialink, PricewaterhouseCoopers, the Centre for Asian Australian Leadership at ANU. This is such a tremendous opportunity for others like me. And I was just so thrilled to receive that call from Dr. Pippa Dixon, and the call arrived to me the day before I left for Belgium after I got my travel exemption granted, which fourth time lucky it was. I've been dancing over here since 2016, and it was quite bewildering that I wasn't allowed to go back and work, but here I am, and completing another year of it before I hopefully return permanently to Australia next year and continue my work back home. Europe's been wonderful and is wonderful, but there's more work for me to be done at home. Speaking of home, I have to say the hugest thank you to my legendary parents. Mum and dad are I owe them everything. You know, they're just the most cool people, so big-hearted and generous, and yeah, they've made me the person I am today. My sister Jasmine, who's my little guardian angel, she's not so little anymore, she's pregnant and due very soon. And her husband Andy, you guys have been so wonderful to me. Salam buat keluarga di Indonesia. I love you all so much. My friends and family in Indonesia, I think of you so much because of COVID in Indonesia is just so devastating, and really I stress out for you every day, and my prayers and love is with all of you, and I really wish I could be there, but the world is what it is now. My friends in Australia, you know, especially my old schoolmates who came and watched my first ballet concert right up until my last one in the Sydney Opera House. My ballet teachers, my dance teachers, and just anyone who's supported and believed in me. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you again for this opportunity. I'm so thrilled, and I just hope that I can continue to do it justice.
Thank you, Juliette, for those incredibly warm and touching insights. For someone who was brought up in Balikpapan and Jakarta, they really resonate personally with me too. So thank you. What a deserving winner. So thank you. We'll now move to the next category, and we'll let Juliette get back to bed. And the next category is community and advocacy and not-for-profit, where we have 6 members joining the 40 under 40. They are Frances Voon, Executive Manager at the Caldor Centre for International Refugee Law at the University of New South Wales; Erin Chu, Founder and National Convener at the Asian Australian Alliance; Isabel Lowe, Founder and Chair at Media Diversity Australia; Mong Lin Do, Director of the Wattle Fellowship at the University of Melbourne; Giancarlo De Vera, President at the Australian GLBTI Multicultural Council; and Peter Chai, Director of Australia-China Relations at the Lowy Institute for International Policy. And the winner of the Community and Advocacy and Not-for-Profit category for 2021 is Frances Voon. Frances, congratulations. Frances is the Executive Manager of the Caldor Centre for International Refugee Law at the University of New South Wales. A proud Chinese Australian, Frances has dedicated her career to advancing the rights of forced migrants. Having worked abroad for the United Nations, she now resides in Australia, providing strategic leadership insights to promote principled policymaking on refugee acceptance laws. She also serves on the board of the Refugee Advice and Casework Service, which provides free legal support to people seeking asylum in Australia. Congratulations. We'll now hear from Frances.
Thank you very much, Jason. I'm pleased to join you today from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you so much to the award co-conveners, the Centre for Asian Australian Leadership, Johnson Partners, PwC Australia and Asialink, and to the award judges for the honour of being named the winner of the not-for-profit and community and advocacy category of these awards. Thank you also to my family, my friends and my colleagues at the Caldor Centre for International Refugee Law and in all the places around the world that I have worked. Without you, my contributions would have been so much less. By celebrating Asian Australian leadership, I think this award does so much more than just recognise the contributions of Asian Australians across many sectors of Australian life. In seeking to diversify our image of leadership, this award highlights the fact that not everyone's contributions are visible and valued. And it begs a question to all of us, which is, who else's contributions are we missing out on? It's a call to acknowledge that when it comes to promoting a truly inclusive society in which everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential, we've still got so much work to do. And this is abundantly clear when it comes to refugees and people seeking asylum, the people with whom I work, who in our political discourse are portrayed in the language of threat and deficit, rather than as human beings who are simply doing what you or I would do if faced with a threat of serious harm, and that is to find a place of safety. And as people who have strengths and capacities, an enormous contribution to make to our community if only given the chance. I believe that how we treat people seeking safety is a test for how truly we hold to the idea that everyone deserves the opportunity to flourish. And when we allow any group to be treated without dignity, as we do with refugees and people seeking asylum, we undermine the foundations of an inclusive society, and in that, all of us lose. And so I believe that all of us who are named in these 40 Under 40 awards today are called upon to be champions for diversity and inclusion for all. And change won't simply happen by accident. It happens because we believe it has to, and we commit ourselves to making it a reality. And so for me, that means committing myself to being a good ally to all those who face barriers to inclusion, to use whatever opportunities I have to celebrate their strengths and contributions, and to call out policies, attitudes, and behaviours that fail to live up to our shared promise of dignity and respect for all. I'm really committed to that work ahead, and I'm honoured to be able to embark on it together with the other winners and supporters of this award. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Frances. What a powerful message, and thank you. Couldn't be more timely to have you and all that you do recognised. So thank you. We now turn to the corporate category, where we have 4 tremendous additions to the 40 Under 40. They are Seiji Armstrong, Head of Machine Learning, Trust and Safety at Google; Catherine Ma, Head of Corporate Strategy at TPG Telecom; Wing Yan Gloria Yuan, Chair of Cultural Inc. and Head of Regulatory Response at NAB; and Tracy Lee, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at PEXA. And the winner of the 2021 corporate category is Seiji Armstrong. And Seiji, congratulations. Seiji is the Head of Machine Learning, Trust and Safety at Google. A proud Japanese Australian and a quantum physicist, Seiji has progressed from developing AI-powered cyber security solutions to protect Fortune 100 banks and retailers, to ensuring that the internet is a safe place for all digital users for Google. His strategies counter abuse across a wide range of verticals such as violent extremism, child safety, and more recently, COVID-19 racial vilification. We'll now hear from Seiji. Welcome.
G'day, Jason. Thank you very much. I'm absolutely honoured to win this award, and it's wonderful to share this platform with all of the other awardees. Congratulations to everyone who's been named, and we'll hear more from people. I'm very much looking forward to meeting everyone in this forum. Thanks to the judges and the organisers. We've had some amazing speeches already from Juliet and Frances. I'm really looking forward to hearing from everyone else too. This award comes at an interesting time for me. Being part of this group of people really has forced me to examine some identity issues and memories that are buried deep inside of me. This also comes at a time where I'm seeing success in my own professional life. The backdrop is I've been in California for the last 5 years. We've lived through the Black Lives Matter movement over there, and of course, most recently, COVID, which has changed the way we live and work and interact. You'll notice I mentioned Black Lives Matter. I'm not black, but I'm also not white. And this has presented a very interesting dynamic, especially living through this in California. So after returning to Australia from California after 5 years, I've been very surprised at the tone of the dialogue and the way that we speak about our own issues in Australia around race. To give a bit of background here, I'm half Japanese, half Australian, as Jason mentioned. And to some extent, this means that I've never been whole in any one culture. Juliet did a nice job of kind of summing up this sentiment as well. I was bullied as a child. I've dealt with racism my whole life. I'm sure other attendees have as well. In Australia, I'm told, come on, mate, it's just a joke. Nicknames around sushi, fried rice, jokes around driving abilities, or worse. It's just being Aussie, bro. You got to take a joke. In Japan, it's less subtle. Not being allowed into certain places. Can't rent certain apartments. Can't see the same type of professional growth the way a native Japanese person would. I've had the head of Mitsubishi tell me this to my face, thinking they were doing me a favor. All of this is to say that communities such as this one, I hope, I haven't met a lot of the people yet, but from what I'm hearing so far, means a lot to me. It's wonderful to be accepted and part of this amazing community, and we can influence change together. At the same time, this award is for Asian Australian leaders. There's no 40 under 40 for white people. White is rarely a category which carries with it this implicit assumption that it is the default. This is obviously a form of privilege. And these biases I find fascinating. I'll come back to this. If I pivot now to my professional life, I'm at Google, as Jason mentioned, and the mission of my team and organization is to keep the internet safe. We stop and prevent cyber abuse. We do this with machine learning algorithms, and they scale the detection of policy violating content. Now, these models encode representations of the world that we are trying to model. Part of my job involves recognizing the many ways that the world is biased and the many types of racism, sexism, ageism, the many isms out there in the world. And we take extreme care when crafting these models not to encode or amplify these biases that we see in the world. And while this requires careful and deliberate attention, models don't push back. It's a lot easier to debias a model or an algorithm than it is to debias a human or society. This last point is very dear to my heart. In my own sphere of influence, I'm very vocal about leading with the concepts of anti-racism and culture ad. I'm actually a bit out of touch surrounding the Australian vernacular on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But to share my perspective, being anti-racist in my sphere of influence means not saying things like, I don't see color. This can perpetuate biases. It doesn't mean treating everyone equally, but it does mean treating people equitably, realizing people have taken different paths and have dealt with varying levels of privilege or not to get to where they are. And perhaps that's in front of us, leaders who can empower these people with positions and privilege and responsibilities. It also means holding our leadership accountable to these concepts. On culture ad, this means not hiring or growing people for culture fit, which can lead to workplaces surrounded by people that look and act just like us. But recognizing that people with different backgrounds can add to your team culture or your organizational culture, leading to better products and services and ecosystems and experiences for society. So I'll leave it here. But to conclude, I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone in this forum. I have a lot to learn. Hopefully have some things to contribute, stories to share. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Seiji. Some great words. And I must say the judges were blown away with the scale and reach that you have from your role at Google to do good, including around such issues as cultural diversity, but as a parent of 4 children, to keep kids safe as well. So just incredibly thrilled to have you as one of our 40 under 40. We now move to the education category, where we have 4 terrific nominees. They are Jessica Justantio, an academic at the University of New South Wales; Stanley Wong, the principal at Abbotsford Primary School; Lee Martin, a senior lecturer at Deakin University; and Taj Parbury, the Chief Executive Officer at the Australian School of Entrepreneurship. And the winner of the education category for 2021 is Stanley Wong. Congratulations, Stanley. Stanley is a principal at Abbotsford Primary School. A proud Taiwanese Australian, Stanley is an educational leader who has led cultural shifts towards diversity and inclusion within language teaching teams, enabling students to engage with their language studies and appreciate the contribution that multiple races make towards Australia's cultural identity. Stanley, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Stanley Wong, and I'm currently the principal of Abbotsford Primary School in Victoria. As someone who has successfully made an exciting career out of my passion for languages and educational leadership, I want to begin my speech today by first taking you all on a little trip back to school. And I began my journey in education teaching LOTE, a subject area that is typically seen as the periphery of a school, unless it's suddenly multicultural day. You know, LOTE, unlike English and maths, has the highest chance of being scheduled in the last session of the day, the highest chance of being interrupted by yet another zoo excursion, the lowest chance of being attended by parents at the parent-teacher interviews. Yet, LOTE teachers typically have the most reports to write, since we're required to run a one-man show, teaching the entire school a language, often with 40 minutes a week. Now, this is certainly not the case with my bilingual school in Melbourne, and I know for many schools that take language learning and intercultural capabilities seriously, time has certainly moved on too. Nonetheless, I think like many other Asian Australians who embrace our unique kind of composite identity, we do continue to face these kind of structural challenges day in, day out in the professional world, battling what seems to be a permeating monolingual mindset with our industry leaders in a country that is ironically one of the most multicultural and multilingual in the world. So even though I have personally overcome many of these challenges with a leadership title or not, I know for many Asian Australian educators who also start from the periphery, what this award symbolizes is much more than a recognition of my individual achievement. It is a sense of possibility, I think, that our contributions to the education sector can also be seen. Interestingly, whilst the Asian Australian identity is stereotypically associated with an emphasis on educational outcomes, education itself is rarely a preferred career of choice among the Asian communities. At least to date, I don't think I have met another Asian Australian principal in Victoria. In fact, the last time I saw any hint of an Asian heritage in the principal's name was in Bendigo's Golden Dragon Museum, where a photo of a well-respected Asian gentleman surrounded by school children was on display. It turned out that Headmaster Tongwei was born in 1894, and this was a celebratory shot of his retirement in 1955. And sometimes I wish I could have come across this photo earlier so that my journey in school leadership would have not at times been tainted with so much self-doubt about the thickness of the bamboo ceiling above my head. So what advice would I give to emerging Asian Australian leaders? Well, I think effective and inclusive leadership is required in every sector, and education is no exception. If we want to see our society foster leadership talent in a way that truly reflects our demographic makeup, then as Asian Australians, we also need to do our bit in nurturing that mindset among the next generation of leaders. It is my hope that next generation Australians will learn to look beyond colour and ethnicity, and that is certainly easier said than done, especially if we continue to be so underrepresented in this very sector that holds the key to inspiring the nation's future. So I hope by winning this award today, I can be a role model for those who aspire to educational leadership, and a living example that this pathway is indeed possible. Thank you again to the organisers of this award. Thank you again to my parents for fostering such a positive and healthy mindset that I have about my Taiwanese Australian identity. And thank you to my beautiful wife for having to put up with all the linguistic talk at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. The judges were just so moved by the impact that you're having and can have on a multi-generational basis as a principal. So thank you for so courageously leading in the field. We now move to the entrepreneurship category, where we have 4 additions to the 40 under 40. They include Lisa Tay, Director and Founder at Cody Agency and Lisnick; Nick La, Founder of WePloy; Jeanette Chia, CEO and Founder of Hacker Exchange; and Reggie Barpay, Founder of Club Media. And this year's winner of the entrepreneurship category is Jeanette Chia, CEO and Founder of Hacker Exchange. Jeanette is a Malaysian Australian and runs multiple educational programs teaching crucial innovation and entrepreneurship skills to the next generation of global leaders, connecting Australians to Singapore and the broader APAC region. Her company highlights economic opportunities within these markets, helping foster global network relationships and placing the spotlight on Asian professionals, founders, and investors. We'll now hear from Jeanette.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, everybody. I don't know about all of you in the room, but I have been sitting here absolutely grinning like an idiot and with my heart pounding with so much pride for every single person who's spoken and everyone added to this list. So just a huge thank you so much to the organisers and to the judges for recognising and pulling together this event. My name is Jeanette Chia. I am so proud to be the founder and CEO of Hacker Exchange, or HEX as we are known. And it was just the other day that I was sitting with one of my mentors running through a pitch deck, and she kind of stopped and said, Jeanette, can you stop trying to justify why you're in the room for this particular pitch? You've given me pages and pages of justification. I want to see what you're going to do next. And it took me a while to reflect on that moment and think, why do I do that? Why do I feel the need to overly explain and justify my presence in a room? And I think it kind of harks all the way back to early professional days, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, when you were the only one of your type in the room. I remember managers jokingly being so proud that they had an Asian female on the team. You are the only one at the table, the only one on the speaker's agenda for the conference, possibly the only one on a panel. And now look at us, look at this room, look at this virtual room of just all of us here together, and not just this year, but previous alumni and future to come. I think that's so inspiring. And so I guess, you know, when you think about what this means to me and why we feel like you have to justify, it does a bit come back to that upbringing of feeling that, you know, you don't quite fit in, but you're doing your absolute best, and you kind of have to be perfect and be the best at everything you're going to do in order to justify your place there. I was born to Chinese Malaysian parents, born in Honolulu in the US. And I was actually raised across Japan, Queensland, before settling here in Melbourne, in Wurundjeri land, where I'm dialing in from today. And, you know, that upbringing, I believe, really instilled in me a truly global mindset. And that's something that I bring into my work every single day. The same way that we need to protect people on the internet, I think we need diverse brains together to build the internet. And that's why I do what I do at HEX, which is bringing together the best of the diverse lived experiences of young people in Australia and around the world to build not only the next generation of technology, but the next generation of business. I truly believe that business as a lever has such incredible power to change things. You can change it through representation, through the decisions that you make. There's so much money in this space that you can just throw towards causes that you think are important. And I just believe that, you know, by creating the next generation of entrepreneurs, we can help to shift that needle a little bit, where businesses make decisions that are great for people, planet, community, society, and representation. There's a few things that, you know, that I really stand for in my work at HEX, and that includes having this bias to action. You know, I was brought up to value hard work and to sort of really respect people that put their backs into it. And so having a bias to action has been definitely something that's important to me. Embracing creativity, something that so many of us in the room here today do, I think is so important for the next generation of leaders. And also, I really believe that entrepreneurship can be it can be the pathway to economic growth and recovery, not only in this country, but around the world. I think we need to let our young people know that entrepreneurship is a genuine career choice. It is not something that you have to have this linear career path where you do school and uni and then, 14 years in a bank, which is what I did, which was fine, and the bank was fine. But I think, if I had had the confidence and the understanding that I could choose to create my own career earlier, I just think of how much more I could have achieved, how much more impact we could make. And I don't want to see anyone losing that opportunity from here on in. I also, this award, and I've got my little trophy here. I was so excited to receive it. So how do the influencers do it? Something like that. So thank you for that. But I just, the award to me just shows me that we have the chance to no longer be that only person in the room. In a world where 3% of venture capital funds go to women, and I can't even imagine what that proportion is for women of colour, I believe my job and what I'll do with this award is to take it one step further and stand up and be seen. I think that for all of us here, we can sort of start to shed that perfection mindset, really embrace what we're bringing to the table. Something great about this pandemic, which is, I'm sorry, the pandemic's been awful, but something that has come to the fore in the world of work is that authenticity is coming to the front. And I think that we have the chance to really lean into our authentic selves and lead from the front, sharing who we are, what we're about, and inspiring people. So I do want to say, thank you again to all the organisers, my wonderful parents. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so to my brothers and sister as well, and to everyone in my team and my entire HEX community. You don't build a business by yourself. There's people who come around you, before you, and I would like to be that person for others in the future. So I would just say for all of the emerging Asian Australian leaders to stand up and be seen, be that person in the room, because you don't know who's looking at you doing what you do and needs to see you doing exactly that in that moment to inspire them to the next step. Thank you.
Terrific, Jeanette. Thanks so much for that inspiring call to action as well. Such a wonderful category, the entrepreneurship one.
Thank you.
So let's now turn to legal and professional services. We have 4 terrific additions to the 40 under 40 in this category. They are Amit Singh, Managing Director at Accenture; Hiroko Ito, Solicitor at Herbert Smith Freehills; J.R. Tang, Barrister at the Victorian Bar; and Tui Huang Rebecca Baggiano, a Senior Associate at Fragaman. And the winner of this year's Legal and Professional Services category is J.R. Tang. J.R. is a proud Filipino-Australian and the first Filipino-born legal member of the Mental Health Tribunal and the first Filipino-born barrister to practice in Victoria. He currently advises the government on human rights issues arising from COVID-19 and acts on behalf of the Victorian Public Sector Commission in the Royal Commission addressing violence, abuse, neglect and the exploitation of people with a disability. JR, a very warm welcome and congratulations. It may be that JR is not with us, in which case we will press on. So moving forward, let's move to the next category. Oh, JR, are you there? Hello, JR.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, thank you, Jason. There seems to have been some sort of a technical issue that arose.
No problem at all.
Yes, and hello to everyone who's dialing in. It's great to have been to be selected to have been the category winner for these awards, and I certainly echo the themes that have been expressed by my colleagues. In accepting this award, I firstly wanted to thank my wife, Helen, my mum and dad, Mila and Ma, and those at the Department of Health and at the Victorian Bar. Specific thanks to Morgan McLeay, who, amongst other things, encouraged me to come to the bar. The significance of this award for me is that it represents the vast cultural shift and improvements that have occurred to enable this recognition and acceptance of issues to do with cultural diversity and intersectionality across Australia. This shift of recognition and acceptance of issues, and dare I say, the importance of cultural diversity and intersectionality, I think, is apparent in the everyday. Particularly, I'd like to raise three matters that demonstrate this. You'll know that recently the Wiggles have chosen to have a diverse and gender balanced cast. When we watch the news these days, you may notice that there are more presenters of an Asian heritage. And in my field, the legal profession, there have been recent appointments to the County Court of Victoria of judges from an Asian heritage. This is important recognition because, in my view, it's this visibility which will assist with the next generation of Asian Australian leaders realising their potential. This breadth of diversity simply didn't exist when I was growing up, and it shows how far the work that we have done has progressed this important issue. As a category winner, my aim is to be visible, accessible, and like others before me, show through action that there are significant contributions being made by Asian Australians in leadership positions, including in my field, the legal profession. As to my own work, I feel privileged to have been able to contribute to the fields of health law, mental health law, aged care, and disability as a barrister and as a legal member of the Mental Health Tribunal. I've been asked to give advice also to emerging Australian leaders, and having reflected on this topic in the context of my own career, my advice is simply this: be yourself and find a place where you are acknowledged for the skills that you bring. This, in my experience, will involve taking risks, sometimes significant risks in the context of your own career. And inevitably, it involves developing resilience for those inevitable times when things just don't go your way. Finally, I'd like to thank the Asian Australian Leadership Summit for this recognition. It truly is an honour. Thank you.
Thanks, JR. We were really moved by the impact that you've been having, and great to see such a strong leader in the legal profession. So thank you very much. We turn now to the public sector and government category, where we have 4 additions to this year's 40 under 40. They are Osman Chu, Senior Policy and Research Officer at the Community and Public Sector Union; Celia Tran, Principal Advisor at the Victorian Multicultural Commission; Charishma Kalyanda, a Councillor at Liverpool City Council; and Nancy Lu Yang, Deputy Consul General at the Australian Consulate General in Chengdu. And this year's winner of the public sector and government category is Celia Tran. Congratulations, Celia. Celia is a Principal Advisor in the Victorian Multicultural Commission. A proud Vietnamese Australian, Celia is considered a trusted advocate for cultural diversity, anti-racism, and meaningful community engagement. She's recognised for her ongoing commitment to supporting multicultural communities. Using her voice within the Victorian public sector, she advocates for systemic change, more inclusive workplaces, and a greater representation of culturally diverse employees across the public service. Welcome, Celia, and congratulations.
Thank you, Jason. A big thank you to all our incredible award organisers for providing this great platform and opportunity for all of us to be recognised today. My apologies, can you hear me okay? Yep. I would also like to extend the biggest congrats to all award nominees and other incredible award recipients as well. I'm absolutely floored at 29 to be honoured for this category. I've got definitely a lifelong journey ahead of me in the public sector, and it's been an absolute roller coaster working in government, supporting some key social policy initiatives in the community, including anti-racism and social cohesion, which I'm very proud about, and currently helping lead the way in Victoria's multicultural COVID response. I remember when I told my mum I'm joining government, she said, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" As a child of Vietnamese refugees, that's probably the one of the careers that she least thought about having her child work in, and told me maybe you should just stick with a career that might not rock the boat as much. And we don't really see many people like you in these leadership roles. Are you sure you want to go down this route? And I said, "Mum, I think so. I've done my stint in the not-for-profit, in consulting, and I kind of really want to make this change in government." And now she's my biggest fan, and really has been the source of resilience for me to do this job. And I think the past 20 months have been an incredibly, extremely difficult time for everybody. It has been the most rewarding for me, being able to be in that frontline response and bring all my skills to use. I'd also like to reflect and give a big shout out to the VPS Women of Colour Network, in which a few years ago when I worked in government, I really wanted to find people who looked like me and in leadership that I could aspire to. And it was a really hard reality at the time that there weren't many like me in that leadership journey, and I really wanted to create that community, so I did. I went ahead and started a staff-led network called the Victorian Public Sector Women of Colour Network. Started out as lunchtime at Treasury Gardens, having a great chit-chat and sharing our similar shared lived experiences. And then it spread like wildfire across the public sector, that there was a safe, inclusive space for women in the public sector to come together. And now we boast over 700 members and allies in the VPS, growing each day, and currently championed by incredible public sector leaders, including a big shout out to our champion sponsor, Adam Fennessy, who's the Victorian Public Sector Commission, who's an incredible ally of ours. At its core, it's a staff peer-to-peer led network, but a big part of our role is also to advocate for the lived experiences of culturally diverse staff, but in particular women of colour and the VPS, who are often not seen or heard, and our issues not often explored. So some of the advocacy that we've been really successful in has been advocating for better, greater data collection of who we are, of cultural diversity, what doesn't get counted, doesn't get measured. So we really instilled that in, and thankfully had, strived to successful grassroots campaign in the public sector. We've also advocated for, greater training for public sector leaders, leading diverse teams, as well as, leadership programs that are for culturally diverse leaders to foster their capabilities and retain the great talent within public sector. I think the proudest moment in my career in government would be setting up this fantastic network led by women, driven by women. So this one's for you, Women of Colour and the VPS, to our champions and allies. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you, Celia. What a wonderful story, and that sense of community that you've created, just remarkable. Thank you for all the hard work. We now turn to the science and medicine category. Always a very hard-fought category. This year, 5 extraordinary individuals joined the 40 under 40. They are Xiaowei Wang, the lab head for molecular imaging and theranostics at Macquarie University; Shilin Wang, the associate professor and future fellow at the University of Technology, Sydney; Eric Chow, associate professor and unit head at Monash University and Alfred Health; Nushin Nasiri, senior lecturer and head of the nanotech laboratory at Macquarie University; and Sumit Walia, associate professor at RMIT University. And the winner this year of the science and medicine category is Shilin Wang. Shilin is an associate professor at UTS, a proud Chinese Australian. Shilin is an award-winning environmental engineer who is most recognised for his work in the technology sector, turning wastewater treatment plant into carbon-neutral energy generators. He's the lead inventor on the international patent for a waste-to-energy technology, which is in the process of global commercialisation. We'll now hear from Shilin. Welcome. Over to you, Shilin.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Jason. I am Shilin Wang, and Australian Research Council Future Fellow at University of Technology, Sydney. I was born in China and completed my primary school, secondary school, and also my bachelor study in China. In 2010, I came to Australia as a PhD student at the University of Queensland. After completing my PhD, I secured an Australian Research Council doctoral fellowship and then started working at the University of Queensland, Griffiths, and the University of Technology, Sydney. I'm currently an ARC Future Fellow and also Associate Professor at the University of Technology, Sydney. I'm very glad and humbled to receive this award. Here I want to thank Asialink at the University of Melbourne, the Australian National University, Jason Johnson Partners and PricewaterhouseCoopers for this great initiative. Thanks Asian Australian Leadership Summit and the judges for giving me this great honor. I would also like to thank my PhD supervisor, my mentor, Australian Research Council, industry partners, collaborators, and also my universities for their strong support. As I am in the science and medicine category, so I also want to briefly talk about my research. I am an environmental engineer and my research is focusing on wastewater treatment. I have developed a suite of technologies to revolutionize the science and practice of urban water management for Australian water utilities. For instance, wastewater treatment requires large amounts of energy and generates greenhouse gas emissions. I have developed an technology to turn wastewater treatment plants into carbon neutral energy generators by maximizing energy recovery from sewage. I think this award is quite special, and I feel very happy to receive this award because I think this award recognizes my Asian background and can inspire the Asian Australians to be in the leadership position. Australia is a multiple culture and also great country. I believe diversity and inclusion are quite important, and we should advocate for it. I think this will bring lots of benefits. For instance, in order to solve a research problem, we need people from different cultural background, age groups, and gender to form a diverse team. This will usually generate amazing outcomes. Finally, I also want to encourage all the Asian Australians, including myself, to recognize every potential opportunities that this amazing country gives us. To gain visibility, break the bamboo ceilings, and make a social impact for the Australians. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and what a remarkable impact your research will have, not just on Australia, but the world. So we're so excited to see that come to commercial application. We're now going to turn to the inaugural award. Over the last 3 years, we've been moved by the number of applicants under 25 years of age. So this year we agreed to initiate an under 25 Rising Star Award. And this year we have two remarkable additions to the 40 under 40 who are both under 25 themselves. They are Zara, a global advocate for gender equality at United Nations Women, and Yash Dutt, founder and CEO at Yuva AI. And the judges were just so impressed by the impact that each of you were having at such a young age in your careers. But the winner of the inaugural Under 25 Rising Star Award is Zara. Zara is a global advocate for gender equality at the United Nations Women. She is a proud Palestinian, Iraqi, Australian, and as a 21-year-old first-generation Australian of Palestinian and Iraqi heritage, Zara is a local, national and international advocate for gender equality, equitable representation within decision-making and refugee rights. She recently worked with the Department of Foreign Affairs in France and Mexico to deliver the Generation Equality Forum. So a very warm welcome to you and congratulations, Zara, for the inaugural award.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you all today. Before I begin, I would like to pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past, present and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand with my Indigenous brothers and sisters in our fight to collectively decolonise the Indigenous soil that we stand on today. I must preface this speech by starting with what an absolute shock it was to receive the call. You see, how can I accept an award when everything I do is because of young people around me? This award is not just for me, but rather it is for every young person that I have had the privilege of working with. To sum it up with a South African proverb, I am because you are. It is quite funny that I am accepting this award on diversity today, because the truth is, if you had asked 10-year-old Zahra almost 10 years ago, she would have cried at the thought of being recognised for her difference and diversity. You see, growing up post the 9/11 era was filled with adversity, to say the least. The boys in my class would actually play the game who can pull off Raghead's hijab first. Young Zahra hated the way she looked and who she was. If anything, my dream was to be your standard Australian, and clearly that emphasised throughout the years. But over the past few years, everything had certainly changed. My diversity no longer becomes my weakness, but rather it reminds me of my ancestors. The woman that has come before me today, who have allowed me to speak so loudly. For many diverse folk, our voices are not just ours alone, but a recollection of every brother and sister that have fought before us for justice and for change. I'm the proud daughter of refugees and migrants from Palestinian and Iraqi heritage. I'm the descendant of war, genocide, and bloodshed. But I am more than that. I, like many other young people around me, am courage and strength. Like many of us in this virtual room today, we are often expected to tell our stories, reliving our trauma, but we neglect to recognise that with our suffering comes strength. I'm an assortment of strength, the strength of my ancestors in Palestine that have fought apartheid, the strength of my brothers and sisters who I worked with on Christmas Island who fight for their voices every day. I'm also the strength that wafts in this virtual room today, every single one of you. Despite our gathering today, I note that we have a long way to go in ensuring that diversity and inclusion is centralised at the core of this country's values. We cannot stop fighting, and I refuse to stop fighting. Not until every young person recognises the power that their voice has, alongside with what their diversity brings. I now speak directly to every young person that has felt excluded within this country for their diversity. We are the urgent change that this country needs. Our voices will truly change the trajectory of diversity and inclusion. Regardless of what this society propagates, we must stand together and scream. Not for us, but for every voice that has come before us and every voice that will come after us. Before I end, I would like to thank Asian Australian Leadership Summit, ANU, Johnson Partners, Asialink, PwC and the University of Melbourne. Institutional change is what is needed more than ever, and to see an incredible initiative like this being celebrated is revolutionary, to say the least. I also would like to thank my family and friends for reminding me that I am not on this world just for myself, but rather for the community that we will build together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those incredibly powerful words. We can't wait to see what lies ahead of you. And Yashdut, who was also a remarkable potential nominee for winner too. So we now turn to our last category, and that is the sport category. The judges were so moved by one nominee that we decided to have one category nominee and overall winner. And that is someone who is an icon in the Australian sporting scene. And that is someone that most of you will recognise, and that is Samantha Kerr. Samantha is a professional footballer. Many of you will have seen and watched her as captain of the Matildas in the recent Olympic Games. She's a remarkable contributor to the Chelsea Football Club, and she's a proud Indian Australian. She's the all-time leading scorer in the National Women's Soccer League, previously held the record in the Australian W League, just a remarkable person and sports person. However, given it's now 2 a.m. in the UK and Sam has just returned from the US after a well-deserved post-Olympics break, rather than have Sam join us, we've asked Craig Foster, former captain of the Socceroos, who was also a judge on the judging panel and who was a dear friend of Sam's, to speak on her behalf. Craig, a very warm welcome.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to PwC and of course to ANU and Geelong and all of my fellow judges. It was a great pleasure and privilege to be able to sit on the judging panel. I must say it was an extraordinarily difficult role that we had. An amazing group of social contributors. This under 40 Asian Australians of tremendous influence, capability and brilliance across every field of life. Of course, when it comes to sport, no one needs reminding that Sam Kerr is one of our most brilliant athletes per se. She's a captain of the Matildas, a brilliant footballer and globally renowned sports star. Sam Kerr in recent years has broken new ground for the game of football, and I would argue for even women's sport in Australia. She, of course, was the first marquee female player within the Australian professional football context. That meant that the W League and Football Federation Australia deemed Sam's participation in her own W League so important that she had to be retained here in Australia to continue her career on Australian soil. It was so important because so many young people around the country, I was going to say young girls, but in fact, all of us are inspired by what Sam Kerr has been able to achieve. So Sam stayed for a number of years and participated in our W League at the same time that she's been an extraordinary contributor on the global stage, whether that was in the US Women's League or, of course, with the Matildas. But as Jason was saying, in the last 12 to 18 months, she's broken new ground again as an extraordinary contributor for Chelsea Football Club, playing in the European Champions League as well. Of course, she was a top scorer there for Chelsea last season. And many Australians will have seen Sam carrying the Australian flag as skipper of the Matildas at the recent Tokyo Olympics. I might say that under Sam's leadership, the team there also demonstrated some very important social justice awareness when they held the Aboriginal Australian flag prior to their first game, where they talked about Aboriginal rights and other social justice issues throughout that Olympic Games. And that just, I think, underlines the importance socially of someone like Sam Kerr and how many youth that she can talk directly through, not just in Australia, but around the world. We're very hopeful this year, after an extraordinary year for Sam, that she might make the biggest breakthrough of all and be the first Australian footballer to be announced as the Ballon d'Or winner. That means the greatest player of the calendar year in the world game. So Sam has been a nominee in recent years, and rightly so. But we do think that given her work in the with Chelsea in the Champions League, in the Women's Premier League in England, and also with the Matildas, where of course they made that fantastic semi-final and broke new ground for the Australian women's national team in an Olympic Games, that this might be the breakthrough year. So I'm delighted to have someone in football, but also as a judge here to announce that Sam Kerr is the winner of the sporting category of the 40 under 40 Asian Australians of influence and brilliance. Congratulations to Sam Kerr, to every winner here. Continue to raise your voice, continue to do the fabulous work that you're doing. We're all very, very proud of you. And if we can help in any way in future, please, you know that we're here. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig, for those incredibly warm and kind words for Sam. And what an Australian icon. So proud to have her as one of the 40 under 40 and the winner of, well-deserving winner of the category. And just great to have Craig and peers of Craig on the judging panel. You can see the calibre and the insight and the passion around the topic. So thank you, Craig. We now turn to the overall winner of this year's awards. And the overall winner, which means above the category winners, so the judges sought to identify the one person whose story stood so compelling that they would be the overall winner for the year. And that person this year is Diana Nguyen. Congratulations, Diana. Diana is a Vietnamese Australian actor. Many of you will know of her. She's been named overall winner of the awards for her leadership, creativity and humour in shining a light on inclusion and diversity in contemporary Australia. In a period of enormous upheaval and uncertainty for arts and entertainers, Diana reminds Australia of the power of authentic storytelling and community connections. Her renowned web series Fee and Me and podcast platforms including Snortcast have shown resourcefulness, great initiative, and have had deep national resonance. We'll now hear from Diana. Welcome and congratulations. When we're ready for Diana.
Yes. Hi. Oh, goodness. Thank you so much, Jason. Such an honour to be gifted. I'm so gracious in it. And yes, I'll do my little spiel, a speech just to say thank you to everyone for this wonderful acknowledgement. I remember getting the phone call a couple of weeks ago, and I thought that they were telling me that the top 40 was full and I should try again next year. But I'm very grateful because I've been working in this industry for 16 years and I have prepared a speech. So thank you so much for this award. My mum doesn't understand what this award means because she's still wanting me to have her grandchildren. So if I give her the grandchildren and the top 40, I think she'll be really proud of me. But I do want to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land, the Kulin Nations. I pay my respects to the elders past and present as I stand on Wurundjeri land. This is and always will be Aboriginal land. This is the land that my mother decided to settle. And she settled here for her future daughters that she'd never met before. This Vietnamese refugee who had nothing but herself walked onto this land and said, I'm going to build a future for my children. And the future was for her 3 daughters, Princess Anne, Princess Sarah, and Princess Diana. So I am named after a princess. The comedy doesn't end. But I would like to thank the Asian Australian Leadership Summit, the co-conveners, the volunteers, the judges who graciously awarded me this award. Thank you. I remember in 2019 being at the first award at the State Library in Melbourne. And it was such a wonderful experience because there was a 3-course meal, everyone looked so grand and beautiful, and there was alcohol flowing. But when I say alcohol, I would say the bubbles, the energy of people in that room, celebrating all our talent, being recognised as Asian Australian, but also as human beings who have constantly contributed back to our society. I want to acknowledge the first winner, the overall winner, 2019, Munera Bano, and the 2020, Leima Nguyen, and all the nominees, and also the 2021 nominees. I received this with great pride. I received this with great pride is because I see and I work with Asian Australians who contribute to this society every single day. I witnessed my mum supporting 3 daughters on her own. I saw my community in Springvale thriving in their businesses. I saw my friends going to university and graduating and fulfilling their parents' expectations. I went the other way. I didn't fulfill my parents' expectation because I decided to be the poor artist. I decided that I wanted to do something that my mum had given me naturally as a child, which was the performing arts, which was to share my story, to tell you how I feel, using body, using music, using piano. And look, like my mum gave me a piano when I was 3 years old, so the expectation to succeed was high. And I want to clear some things about the poor way, because you know, I've worked really hard not to be poor in the arts because I believe there's an alternative.
And look, who is the winner? Me. Look at that. Just, yeah, yay. The arts is like being Asian Australian. Sometimes we are undervalued, misunderstood, and stereotyped. Now, hear me out. The arts is about self-expression. It's about the soul speaking, the movement in body, and it transforms time and space. Being Asian Australian is my identity, my culture, and my belonging. So when the federal government didn't provide support for the arts, for the artists, for live performers, as the same as business, I was very annoyed, I was very confused, and it angered me. I would like you to think about your 2020. We all experienced it. We all went into lockdown, well, particularly in Melbourne. And if you're from Melbourne, please shout out from Melbourne or Sydney. We're all in this together. But I do want you to think about 2020 or 2021 and what did you use to escape just a moment from this reality that we're part of now. It's the arts, whether it be listening to music, streaming on Netflix, watching a comedy show, reading a book, baking bread as an art because I can't cook, so I see that as an art, or dancing in the living room. That is art. This is creation. So when you hear about Asian Australians being attacked and verbally vilified, ignored in the year of 2020, it annoys me, it confuses me, and it angers me. Someone who grew up watching people in Dandenong throwing eggs at Pauline Hanson, being casted as a prostitute or druggie role because that's what I look like, or not having our work recognised in a country we have given back endlessly. It is why I've used the arts to express my dual identity as a Vietnamese Asian Australian woman. I have produced endless shows talking about my intergenerational conflict with my culture and also with this society. There was a moment that I did want to be a white Australian, that I didn't want to be related, didn't want to know my language. I barracked for Hawthorn, which is a rare thing for an Asian woman to do. I'm a member as well. I watched the cricket because I just wanted to be part of the Australian society. I also wrote a short story called 5 Ways to Disappoint Your Vietnamese Mother. It's in Alice Pung's Growing Up Asian Australia. And it's been studied by students from all over Victoria, talking about their conflict, about being Asian Australian. And I can tell you now that in my 30s, and I've got 4 more years until I hit my 40s, so I'm really grateful for this award, that I'm fighting back to rediscover my culture, my people, and celebrate who we are. Hence why Fee and Me was created by myself and my childhood friend Fiona Chow. 2 women from Springvale who had no idea how to, put on a show at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. We sat down and wrote stories growing up with our single Vietnamese refugee mums. We wanted to share another perspective of what it's like to be Australian. It's not home and away, it's not neighbours, but it's our community in Springvale that helped raise us up. And we wanted to distinctly share the Vietnamese refugee experience because it's unbelievable that Fee and Me was the first Vietnamese Australian family comedy web series in the world, and that was in 2019. So with this award, I would like to dedicate to all people, regardless of what cultural background you are, is to write your story, contribute to the Australian story, put your hand up and be seen. And if you can pop your hand up now in the chat and just tell us where you're watching from, because being visible is so important right now. It is our responsibility to be seen, to share your story and your work. The reason why I transitioned from an actor to comedian was I wanted to work on TV. And I looked on TV and found that they weren't hiring any actors for the project or, a panel comedy show. So I, in 2016, decided I needed to transition to a comedian. And I added another tool to my toolkit so that I could progress my career and not be a poor artist. And I do want to say that why I say it's our responsibility is that we shouldn't be hidden, because Fee and Me is a celebration of a love story that should not be hidden but should be treasured by all Australians. And I've done a lot of things in my life, and I think I want to thank the panel for going through, the judges for going through my life. But I am a creative entrepreneur because I love creating. I would say that for all the nominees and the winners today, you probably don't just have one skill in your career, but you have a full tool, lots of tools in your toolkit. And that's what it is like, the reality, to be a successful Asian Australian, because we need to do everything. I dance on LinkedIn. Yes, that's a true story. I snort on my show. I talk about joy in my TED Talk. I also work as a clown doctor here in Melbourne. I curate lineups here in Melbourne that look Australian, that have men and women and all cultures and all genders. I also worked with refugees and migrants for 8 years in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne because I saw the struggle that my mum experienced, and I wanted these young people from Afghan, Burmese, Sudanese backgrounds the opportunity to heal and to share their story of what it's like to be a young person growing up in the suburbs of Melbourne. I want you to take this as an action. I actively support the arts. I buy tickets to shows. I contribute to this awesome industry that allows for us to pause and breathe. As a provocation, I would like you to buy a ticket to the Melbourne Fringe. The Melbourne Fringe had its face-to-face festival cancelled, and I want you to actively support the arts. If there is a music event, buy a ticket. The music event has been completely destroyed and unsupported at this moment. Go see Shang-Chi at the movies, the first Asian Marvel hero, or a podcast by Asian Australians. Pay us the rate that businesses get paid, and don't ask for a discount. Support the current Asian Australians, artists who are working so hard now, so that the next generation can say, hey, I can give this a go. Thank you to everyone who is in this room, to the partners, the Australian National University Centre for Asian Australian Leadership, Asialink at University of Melbourne, PwC Australia, and Johnston Partner. There is no gala event, there is no dancing or alcohol flowing, but I hope that you are dancing in this space, because it's a celebration. We are all here because all our powers combined will change the world. I love Captain Planet, so that was a reference to Captain Planet there. Congratulations to the nominees for 2021. We all raised each other up. Let's keep rising up and celebrate our work. Let's double down. Thank you to my community. You know who you are. I might have shared a Zoom link to you to come and cheer and watch this superb event to celebrate Asian Australians. Because without my community, I wouldn't be where I am right now, because they kept buying tickets to my shows for 16 years. And every ticket, every crowdfunding karaoke song that I did for Fee and Me allowed me to be here. To my mentors and managers who have cared for me, Kim Hun and AALS Entertainment, thank you for encouraging, supporting and nurturing and allowing me to grow my work. To my family and to my friends, thank you so much. And in particular, I need to name my family, which is my sisters, Anne and Sarah, my brother-in-law, Johnny, and my beautiful niece, Audrey, because they gave so much joy to me to do what I do. And I hope that this gives a voice for the next generation to stand up. If you have a dream, please go and grab it and take it with joy. And lastly, to my mum, I will never be able to repay what you did for me and my two sisters, for what you sacrificed and struggled. Thank you for making a struggle and not believing in me for working in the arts. It was a struggle, but you changed and you embrace what I do now. Not only did it make me work harder to prove to you that I could do this, but it also allowed me to share our story to the world. Thank you, Mum. And thank you, Jason, and everyone for this beautiful acknowledgement. And thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And again, just the most heartfelt congratulations from not just the judges and the co-conveners, but from everyone in the room. You know, you're joining a very privileged place. As you say, Manira and Lima before you have used this platform, the voice that this platform provides, to have enormous influence and impact, to take their mission and the vision that we all collectively share for a greater future beyond your current environment into a much more universal environment. And that's true of all of you, all of the 40 today. We now have 120 awardees over the last 3 years. And the collective energy of that group is remarkable. What you can do together if you link arms, metaphorically in these days, but if you come together around a few particular topics, think of the impact and change that you can drive. I'm incredibly proud to be involved with this, along with my co-conveners. The wonderful friendships that have come from this, you know, will sustain through life. And to hear Diana and that incredibly touching and inspiring speech will stay with me, as did Lima's last year and Manira's before that. So as we move to a completion of today's awards, again, a thank you to all involved in today. And thank you for the continued support of these awards, to the support for the broader Asian Australian Summit. Thank you to Jae-Yung Lo and the broader ANU team who've been supporting today's video, and to all my co-conveners. Until next year, keep well, keep safe, and thank you.